By his executive order, he signed the relief to student loans by suspending student loan payments through the end of the year, also dropping interest rates to zero. Now, the student loan payment suspension was already in place through the end of this month, or excuse me, the end of next month, September 30th, but the president has extended that through the end of the year. So we will have all of this coverage on Fox News Channel. Do tune into Fox News for extended coverage and analysis and explanations on all of this. But what we're going to do right now is take a pause and let all of our Fox affiliates get back to their regular programming. I'm Arthel Neville. Thanks for watching. Okay, so we're back here on Fox News Channel for reaction to President Trump signing those executive orders on the coronavirus release. We're going to bring in Susan Ferricchio. She's a chief congressional correspondent for the Washington Examiner. Susan, a couple of things. I want to start where there's reporters left where they ended that press conference. So here's where they being Congress, they left off on Friday. The GOP, as you well know, Susan Ferricchio, they wanted $400 a week for 20 weeks, or 70% of wage replacement with a $600 cap. The Democrats still wanted $600 a week, which is what Americans, millions of Americans, have already been receiving. The reporter said, okay, President Trump, first of all, $400 would not be enough for a lot of people, Susan. You can react to that. But the reporters asked, well, when is it going to get into their pocketbooks, into their hands? He says, quote, it will be rapidly distributed. Take it away, Susan.
Well, that's not really clear how quickly it will get there, because the state unemployment systems need to get that money to people. And it could be at least a couple of weeks, I've heard. But at least I think what the president was trying to say is that we're getting it started now. So it's the executive order is signed, the process has started, and people will get that money faster than if they did nothing. To your first question about the amount, so you're correct that there's been a debate about how much to extend the enhanced unemployment benefits, and they were initially $600 per week, and there were a lot of critics of that because it paid a lot of people. I think one study estimated almost 70% of workers were receiving more than they would have gotten if they were back on the job. And that provided, according to critics, a disincentive for getting back to work. So the compromise number was $400. Democrats said during these negotiations last week in Congress that they really want the $600, even though it may pay people more than they were getting while they were working.
So
and
Susan,
Republicans wouldn't agree to that. And that was pretty universal, not just the Trump administration negotiators, but the senators and Republican senators and House Republicans saying that that was too much money. So the president declared it to be $400. That's where they ended up. Pretty much what the president said today, those four executive orders were four key points
Let me
that
jump in,
the negotiators
Susan, for a second.
were trying to get,
Susan,
and they weren't able to get.
Can you hear me, Susan? I'm sorry. I want to have this conversation with you. Okay, I'm sorry. So what I wanted to stick with the unemployment for a second, the additional unemployment. Sure. $400. I know that some people said, listen, $600 is preventing some people from being incentivized to get back to work. That's not the majority of the people. There's so many people out there, Susan, who really, really, really honestly need $600 a month. That will make the difference between, do I pay for my rent? Do I get my medicine? You know, a lot of essentials that people need. So do you know maybe perhaps that there's a way that they can come back to the table and say, how do we get the money to the people who really need it? How do we decipher between those who desperately need it and those who are just saying, hey, I'm not going back to work because it's more than I would make on the job? I mean, is there any way to parse that?
Yeah, for the $400 per week versus the $600 per week. It's normally, though, it's much, much lower during bad economic times. You're talking, I think, during the recession after 2008, it was something like $30 per week. So we're really talking about a lot of money, Arthel, a lot more than they normally get. But then again, the unemployment rate is much higher than it's ever been in almost in decades. You know, we're at 10% right now, which is better, but it's still so high, and it's a lot of these businesses haven't reopened. So some of this is anticipatory. It's like saying these jobs are going to come back, and now this matches what the president thinks the economy is going to end up at as we move forward, as reopenings begin. But the point you make is great, because of course we have coronavirus still surging in some places. Things are closing down again in some cases, and so you have this inability for people to go back to work. But again, this money they're making still would match more what they had been making on the job. So to say they need that money, again, I think it was a University of Chicago study that said almost 70% were making more than they were making while they were working. So
here's the thing: you and I both know that state contributions to unemployment, it varies. Okay, so if you live in one state, you could maybe get $800 a week in unemployment. If you live in another state, you could get $200 a week or $175 a week. And typically on that lower end, it's where people who need it most, they need the augmentation. They need the $600 to bump them up to somewhere that's even near just below poverty in many cases. So this is what I'm talking about. This is why the people elect the folks in Congress. This is why we elect a president, to get together to figure out who needs what and stop it with the politics and get it to the folks who need it. Not wasting. I understand that. Do you see? Is there any way now that we're at this yet another crossroads that they can get together and figure this out?
Well, I think what you're going to see is that the president will sign this executive order. There may be court action, of course, but he made the good point that it would be hard for Democrats to win the PR battle here by trying to block in court some of these things that everybody needs. But I do know that Secretary Mnuchin and Chief of Staff Mark Meadows have said we still are willing to negotiate other parts of this bill that aren't part of the executive order, like the school funding, like the small business loans, money for testing and vaccine development and treatment, all these other things that were part of the broader package that the two parties were negotiating. They said on Friday that we're still willing to come back and talk about this, but that the president wanted to move because, don't forget, Arthel, those unemployment benefits you're talking about, they expired at the end of July.
Right.
Republicans offered to keep extending them by a week at a time, and Democrats are blocking that at the $600 level. So you have all kinds of games played.
Well, they were
by
blocking
both
it. The
parties
Democrats.
here. It's not one or the other.
Sure. The GOP, they wanted $400 for 20 weeks or 70% of wage replacement with a $600 cap. Listen, so I'm running out of time with you, Susan, but you pointed out that President Trump said, yeah, okay, you want to sue me? Do it. This thing's going to get tied up in court. I want to know if you can clarify for us. So what happens in the meantime while the folks who need whatever the money that it is that they're going to get, when will they get it while they wait to see what's going to happen in court? Because Congress is the one
to the courts, and
because Congress has the power of the purse, not the president.
right, but there are ways where he can declare it under his executive authority that he thinks he has that authority. So the courts will decide, and I think that the money will go out while that fight is ongoing. The question is, how quickly can the states get that money out? That's a per state issue. Each state has to figure out how to get that money out quickly, and it usually takes a week or two at least to ramp up that process. So I don't think people are going to see the checks tomorrow, but they'll certainly see the checks a lot faster than if we go day after day after day where the two parties are unable to agree on anything that can make its way through both chambers of Congress. So it'll be quicker than if nothing was done today, but it's not going to be tomorrow.
Listen, I want to acknowledge that, the president, with his 4 signatures, he will help millions of Americans who need some assistance, and they need it stat. So let's acknowledge that. We also know that there is politics at play from the executive level on down. So we will see this play out, and hopefully that they can work something out that will benefit all of the other points that you said there that are still left to be negotiated from state and local assistance, housing, more housing, education, and the rest. So, Susan, let you wrap up with the next. Give me 30 seconds and wrap up your thoughts.
Well, I think what we'll see happen next is there'll be more conversations in Congress, but the president, what he's done now, he's moved the big parts of that off the table. And so that may impact how quickly the two sides get back in, because if the unemployment starts flowing and the rental eviction abatement happens, the student loans, and that, if all that stuff, and the payroll tax cut, all that stuff is now off the table, it may make it easier for them to talk about the other issues, but it also removes some of the urgency. So, and it's also August now, so Congress is, everybody is scattered to the winds in the Capitol. They're not there. So I think that we'll see what happens in the next week or two, how quickly the two parties want to get back together on those other big issues, and that will be the thing to watch.
And of course, we're going to watch the other side as they react to this, because they're going to see this as a political ploy on the part of the president. Again, we're going to acknowledge, politics aside, this is going to help millions of Americans. And really, at the end of all of this is what really counts. One thing the president did say is that he said that the Democrats wanted the payroll tax cuts. The way I understood it, that they did not want payroll tax cuts, because payroll tax cuts or payroll taxes is what pays for Social Security. And if you don't have that, then you don't have enough money to pay those who are collecting Social Security. Susan?
That's correct. And also, a lot of Republicans are very concerned about that. Republicans I've talked to on Capitol Hill about this repeatedly tell me, we like the idea of cutting taxes, but those payroll taxes pay Medicare and Social Security, which already are quite endangered. They're running out of money. So that money is going to have to come from somewhere to put back in there. And you heard the president today say, not only does he want to cut those taxes in terms of a payroll tax holiday, but he's saying, if I'm reelected, I'm going to forgive this. In other words, that money will never come back into the Treasury from the taxpayers again, and that's going to further kind of hurt the integrity of the Medicare and Social Security funds. So they're going to have to figure out a way to shore those up, and they're already having problems. So that's a big issue. That and the deficit and all these other problems that all this spending is contributing to down the road, it's going to have to be dealt with.
So did the president help his cause for re-election or hurt his chances for re-election with this?
He definitely helped his cause by doing this, because what he's doing is two things. He's taking away a talking point from Democrats who keep talking about the Republicans as being unwilling to help people. The president doesn't want to help people, doesn't want to help children, renters, the unemployed. He's saying, look, here I am taking action because Congress won't help me, so I'm going around them. President Obama did this quite a bit, rather effectively, and I think the President Trump did that today. He showed he's taking action in an emergency to try to get things done. That always resonates with voters. I think Democrats are in a tough spot if they sue over this, even though they may have a good cause behind them to do so with the payroll taxes. And what authority does he have to do this? Is he reprogramming funding in any way? That Congress doesn't like that. But again, it'll look like they're suing to stop unemployment, rental, eviction abatement, other things that are really important to voters. So I think the president, if this were a chess move, that he's got a little bit of the upper hand right now politically.
Yeah, no doubt. Presidents Obama and Trump may have come to executive orders via different roads, but no doubt today's President Trump's action was a Trump move.